the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast with your host, Jackie Pilosoff.
No one should have to go through a divorce feeling alone and isolated. The Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast is a production of Divorced Girl Smiling, where every show is 30 minutes aimed to empower you, help you feel validated and understood, and connect you with some of the best divorce professionals in the industry. So grab a cup of coffee or a glass of wine and start smiling as you join us right now for the Divorced Girl Smiling Podcast. Heard everywhere podcasts can be found and always at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. Before we get started, I want to recommend two Divorced Girl Smiling trusted professionals who I think are wonderful. The first one is divorce coach Janine Marie Powell. And Janine went through a divorce. She understands the struggles and the heartache and how difficult it is to be a single parent. And so she was in a lot of pain several years ago. She said that even though she had a really good attorney, a very good therapist, and support from family and friends, she still felt alone and paralyzed. So she became a divorce coach several years ago, and Janine is wonderful. She's really smart, she's extremely warm and compassionate, and she's dedicated to helping women and men as they go through divorce and after. If you want to learn more about Janine, you can find her at sosdivorcecoach.com. I also want to tell you about a wonderful therapy group in Chicago and Northbrook. The name of the therapy practice is Affiliates in Counseling, and I have known Jason Price, who's the co-founder, for probably 15 years. Jason is an amazing therapist himself, but he also has over 50 therapists that work at the practice, and they all have different niches. I know many of them. I'm telling you, this practice is so warm, so caring, and so dedicated. So if you want to find a really good therapist, go to affiliatesincounseling.com. And you can find both Affiliates in Counseling and Janine in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Going through a divorce is painful, stressful, sad, scary, but it's not just parents who feel this pain. Kids are affected too. And I never like when people go, kids are resilient. That there is truth to that statement, but that doesn't mean that kids don't need help, support, an overshowering of love during this time. And so today's conversation is going to be wonderful. I have a great guest. We're going to talk about 10 things your kids might be thinking and how to handle it. My guest is divorce attorney Anna Krolikowska. Anna has been a divorce attorney for 19 years. She prefers to settle her cases through mediation. She has a heavy focus on co-parenting and helping kids. She's the author of a new book called My Parents Are Getting Divorced. It's a children's book, great book. And I also wanted to mention that Anna is a collaborative divorce attorney, which is a wonderful way to get divorced in a peaceful way that is great for kids. So hi, Anna.
Hi, Jackie. Hi, everyone.
I'm so excited to talk about your book and to talk about these tips for parents getting divorced who are worried about their kids, which is all parents, and what these kids might be thinking, because you say in this article that it's hard to guess what your kids are thinking. I mean, you don't even know. You've never been through a divorce, even at young kids especially, but any kids, right? We don't know what they're thinking.
Well, sometimes we do because in my work, and I've been doing this close to 20 years, I interact a lot with mental health professionals. We get feedback from them, we get feedback from parents. In my work as now collaborative divorce attorney and mediator, I do work in this space a lot. Previously, I litigated. So we do have some insights as to what the kids might be thinking. And also, it depends on their age because what a 4-year-old might be thinking, you might find that out differently than what a 13-year-old might be thinking because a 13-year-old might tell you in different ways than a
Right.
4-year-old.
I was just gonna say, we might know what they're thinking, but they do these, like, weird things, and we're like, "Wait, why did my child just say this? Why did my child do this? Why is my child misbehaving in school? Why is my child picking fights with people?" They show it in such different ways, so we might not really realize, especially when they're young, what they're thinking. I also wanna tell everybody listening that Anna is a mom to a four-year-old, so she totally understands parenting and really chose to focus on helping kids, which is why she does the collaborative process and divorce mediation.
I'm
So,
gonna be honest, I don't know if I totally understand the parenting, but just like all of you, I'm in the trenches and I'm doing the best I can day to day.
well, firsthand experience is the best way,
True.
as I know too.
True.
Okay, when it comes to divorce and kids, here are 10 things your kids might be thinking. I'm going to read off the thing, and Hannah, you give me your opinion and kind of explain. So, the first one that you wrote that a kid might be thinking is, did I do something wrong? Are my parents getting divorced because of me?
Yeah, that's a big one. And you really want to reassure your children, not just at the beginning of your process, but throughout. It's not about them, right? They didn't do anything wrong. This is an adult process, an adult decision. And in fact, when I work with clients, I try to share with them from the very beginning that as much as you can, try to keep things that are intended for adults to the adults. So keep your process, your divorce between you and your spouse. If you can, figure out at the very beginning what you want to share, keep it age appropriate, and hopefully the two of you can stick with that agreed script, what it is that you're going to share, the level of disclosure that you're agreeing to have with your children. Because at the core of it, it will come down to, did the child do something wrong? They're going to keep thinking that because kids are self centered. They are. And that's
I,
okay. They're supposed to be, right?
I could not agree more. And I almost feel like it's important to say it to them. Even if it doesn't even come up, when you're talking about anything, say, you didn't do anything wrong. You know this has nothing to do and it's not your fault, right? You know that your dad and I love you so much. We think you're a wonderful kid and this divorce is nothing that you contributed to.
I
I think you
agree.
because
100% agree.
if you don't say it, they might think you're not saying it because it was their fault.
I absolutely agree with you.
Okay, number 2, I don't want anything to change. So no one likes change. Adults don't like it. It's uncomfortable, and neither do kids.
Absolutely. And you will need to talk about it and not just once at the beginning of the divorce process, but throughout your journey. And also keep it in mind as you're creating your parenting schedule. And yes, it will look very different for a 4-year old or a 6-year old than a 13 or a 15-year-old. But keep it in mind as you're talking about the number of transitions or how many days in a row each parent would be spending with the child. Again, keep the fact that kids don't like change in mind.
Okay. Also, if you're gonna subject these kids to all this change, which is unavoidable in divorce, don't you feel like, Anna, it's really important to have the schedule before you even tell the kids? Like, you don't have to have the exact schedule, but when you tell the kids that you're getting divorced, the first thing they're going to say is, wait a minute, when am I going to see you guys? Wait, who am I living with? What am I doing? And then they panic. But if you say something like, we've already talked about this, and your dad and I want you to spend 1 week at my house and 1 week at his house, or whatever custody you think you're going to end up with before you even let them know. That takes away that burden of, I don't want anything to change.
I'm a big proponent of that if your situation and your circumstances allow it. So, if you are being thoughtful and have the time and space and can come up with your entire plan and then share it at your leisure with your children, then I would absolutely suggest that. because then you are sharing specifics with them and minimizing that fear of change. But we know that not all divorces happen that way, right? So if there's something urgent or an emergency or something that causes an incident to occur and a divorce happens or starts that way, you might not have the luxury of having an entire plan or an entire schedule in place, but still try to share some details that will give the kids reassurance, and while also then reassuring them that they were not the reason or the cause, right?
You're listening to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. And today we're talking about 10 things your kids might be thinking when it comes to the divorce. My guest is divorce attorney and collaborative divorce attorney Anna Krolikowska. Anna's also the author of her new children's book called My Parents Are Getting Divorced. Love it, love it, love it. Anna and I are going to take a short break. And when we come back, we have 8 more things to tell you that your kids might be thinking and how to handle it. We'll be right back. Melissa Wheeler Farrig was a practicing divorce attorney who spent many years litigating divorce cases in California. Melissa was highly successful, but she knew there was a better, smarter way to divorce: mediation. So Melissa decided to become a full-time divorce mediator and founder of her practice, High Vibe Mediation. I have to say, I can't say enough about Melissa. Melissa is smart, she's dedicated, she has a holistic approach to the divorce and co-parenting process. She prioritizes equity, collaboration, respect, and conflict resolution. Great, great person. If you want to learn more about Melissa, you can find her on her website at highvibemediation.com. I also want to tell you about a really good mortgage lender named Tracy Flanagan. And Tracy has been doing loans for over 20 years. I love Tracy. She's so good at what she does. She's so smart. She's so kind. She's just such a good listener. Love, love, love Tracy. If you want to learn more, you can find Tracy on her website at greenstate.org. And you can find both Tracy and Melissa in the Trusted Professional section of Divorced Girl Smiling. Welcome back to the Divorced Girl Smiling podcast. My name is Jackie Pilosoff, and I'm your host. And today I'm here with divorce attorney and collaborative divorce attorney Anna Krolikowska. Anna has been practicing for 19 years. She's the past president of the Illinois State Bar Association, and she's also the author of her new book, My Parents Are Getting Divorced. It's a children's book. And Anna and I are talking about 10 things your kids might be thinking during your divorce. We're going to move on to number 3. This is so perfect. For sure, kids are thinking this. Where's all my stuff going to be? That's
Yeah,
probably every kid's one of their first thoughts.
absolutely, because that's what they care about and they should, right? Their favorite toys, their comfy chair, whatever it is. So for you as parents to minimize that fear, that concern about this stuff, if you can duplicate certain things, try to do that. If you can't, try to take the concern away in terms of transitioning the stuff. So
Like
if there are
back
certain
and
things,
forth.
the back and forth. So if there are certain things that need to travel with the child, make sure that the parents take responsibility for making sure that these things actually travel, whatever it is. And it's not just making sure that the right clothing or shoes or, soccer gear or whatever it is that's needed comes along with the child, but is it also the favorite, teddy bear or the comfortable pajamas or the comfortable chair or whatever it is that will make the child feel like they are at home in both houses.
I love that advice because kids have so much stress. I'm going to read the next one that they're thinking. Am I still going to live in my house? Am I going to go to the same school? What's going to happen to my friends? Am I going to have to leave my best friend? That is so stressful. And Anna, again, I know this isn't always possible in a divorce, but if you can work out these details before you even tell the kids, it's so much better. Like you can't tell the kids you're getting divorced a day before your ex moves out, right? That's just not a good idea because then like that's too much trauma. But how about when they say, "Where am I gonna live?" Say, "Dad's looking for a house, but he's gonna stay in our same neighborhood, so he's not gonna be far from us, and you're gonna get to see both of us a lot, all the time, really."
To a kid, that sounds a lot better than the first option, right? And to a parent or to an adult going through a divorce process, if you're able to have that conversation with your child once you've already come up with a plan so you know who's staying in the current family home, if anyone, or maybe both of you are transitioning to different houses but still in the same school district, whatever the plan might be, then you know also your reality, your new space, your new place, and you can share that plan with your child rather than maybe making promises at the beginning of the process and then feeling like you have to make certain sacrifices later on, sometimes financial, that aren't necessarily in your best interest long term, but you feel like you've made promises that you're now trying to keep.
Love it. Great, great advice. The next one, number 5, is kids might be thinking, "This isn't fair." Like all my friends I don't have any friends whose parents are divorced. Why us? This doesn't seem fair.
Yeah, and that's a tough one. And life isn't fair. Sadly, life
Would
isn't
you tell
fair.
parents to say to their kids, like, "You're right, it isn't fair."
I would. Sometimes it's one of those parenting conversations you have. Yeah, life isn't fair. And maybe they've had that conversation prior to this, but yes, it's not fair and it's not what you expected and it's different, but we will adjust and we still love you and we will make sure that this is what our future looks like, whatever it is that you're crafting and creating, because you don't want to dismiss their feelings around what's going on. You want to acknowledge them, but on the other hand, we also don't want to raise, well, I'm speaking broadly, but I wouldn't want to raise my child thinking that life is necessarily always fair, right? And then have
And you
and
gotta
a
be
child find out
realistic.
otherwise. I want to be
You have to be
realistic. I want to
realistic.
prepare my child for what they might face in the future.
Right. Okay, number 6, I don't want us to be different. None of my other friends' parents are divorced. First of all, it's not fair, but also I don't wanna be different. It's embarrassing. I got divorced when my kids were 3 and 5. We were definitely the first family of any of my kids knew, other kids, to get divorced. And I'm trying to think if they didn't say it to me because they were so young, but, if people are listening and your kids are older than 8, they're probably going to be thinking this or saying it to you.
Yeah. And again, acknowledging it, acknowledging emotions, talking to them about it, and also talking about the fact that there are probably other kids and other families going through it. You might want to reach out to the school and see if there are resources there. Some schools actually have programs available for children whose parents are going through divorce. So there might already be a built-in community of children for your children in that space. There might also be other resources available through mental health professionals if you're working with someone. But there are resources. So acknowledging that reality for your child, but also trying to normalize it because even if you just look at statistics and I'm not trying to just point us to statistics, but 50% of divorces, I'm sorry, of marriages end in divorce. So that tells us there are other children out there, but it's just helping your child understand that they won't be alone or the only one.
Okay, I think it's important to bring this up because I remember when I was getting divorced and my kids were 3 and 5, they were really 2 and 4. And my therapist at the time, great, great therapist, she said to me, because I said to her, "I don't know anybody else who's divorced." I didn't even know one person. And she said, "Listen, your kids are young, but you're going to see in the next few years a lot of divorce. You're going to hear about one, then you're going to hear about another. And by the time your kids are in middle school, probably almost half of the kids' parents will be divorced. And she was 100% right. So maybe you could tell your kids if they're young, you guys are young, but this is going to happen to a lot of people. It's very common. I don't know if you would bring up statistics to a kid, but
Probably not to a kid, but sharing it with parents, right? So
yeah,
they know that that information is
yeah.
out there.
Okay, number 7, this is interesting. Maybe my parents will change their mind and decide to get back together and not get divorced. That is so sad to me.
Yeah, and unfortunately, I hear that one a lot, especially from our mental health professionals friends, that that is a common thought that children might have. And so it is important for you to know of it, to be aware of it, and think about how you can address it, respond to it, and also what you can do to not perpetuate that feeling or thought process for your child. And for that, I would suggest that you work with your mental health professional or your coach if you're in collaborative process to figure out specifically what within your family dynamic would be helpful so that you're helping your child move on so that not they're not thinking specifically that you might be able to get back together. I'm not saying it doesn't happen in some families, it's just rare,
Very
that it
rare.
does.
I also think it's one of the reasons kids get very upset when one of their parents starts dating somebody because that hope of their parents getting back together just got smashed.
Yeah.
So these kids are like, well, now it's a reality and now they're not getting back together.
Yeah. I can also share with you that I heard from some mental health professionals that nesting, and I know that sometimes it's talked about as a possible alternative to um, being in separate spaces and separate households, that sometimes nesting can cause children to think that parents might get together. So when you're thinking of your parenting schedules, consider that and maybe do some additional research from that angle.
Okay, number 8 is maybe I can get my parents back together. So that's just kind of the same thing. They have hope, except the difference is in number 8, they think they can facilitate the parents working things out. Maybe they think if I act better, if I'm behaved better, if I do my homework, if I'm nicer, maybe they won't get divorced.
Yeah, and I would say that one puts a lot of stress on the child, right? So if you're seeing that behavior, all of a sudden your spunky, rambunctious kid all of a sudden is the perfect child. Maybe keep that in mind and keep an eye out in terms of what's happening here with our kiddo.
Yes. You're exactly right. Maybe they just start acting like perfect. Okay, number 9, I'm mad at my parents. There's a lot of anger at probably some point from kids. How do you deal with kids being angry, and what does that look like?
I think it will definitely depend on the age group that you're dealing with because anger and resentment from a 13 or a 14 or a 15-year-old will look very different than your 7 or 8-year-old. The temper tantrum will look very different. Um, so will, frankly, the risks in terms of the behavior they might be engaging in. So, very much keep an eye on your child again. And I am a big proponent of working with mental health professionals to give everyone the
Therapy is
support.
a must.
Yes, yes,
Therapy is
absolutely.
a must. Even if you feel like you have the most well-adjusted, greatest kids, at least try a few sessions. You're spending all this money on the divorce. It's okay to have some co-pays or even pay cash for a therapist. That you can't put a price on the mental health of your kids.
I absolutely agree. And you will then create a space for them where they can talk to someone who is not mom or dad or a family member, vent, create coping strategies, whatever it is they need so that they are being taken care of while going through this process as well, because they're going through it just as much as you are.
All right. So, number 10, I hope my parents still love me and want to be with me. Do you
Oh,
think
that's so
kids are
sad.
really thinking that? They're
Yes.
insecure?
Yes, they are. 100% they are. So reassure them, tell them, show them, spend time with them. And I understand it's going to be sometimes difficult because there's going to be a lot of transitions, not just in terms of your day to day life, but you will be going through new things. You will be learning new things. You will be going through a process, even if it's mediation or collaborative, which often require a lot less of your time, and there's a lesser learning curve than litigated process, you will still be investing time and energy into learning a lot of new things and making decisions and going through this process, which ultimately ends with a judgment of divorce. And so you will be spending a lot of time on these new things that you were not doing before. And to a kid, that might look like, one, there's this huge new change in my family, and my parents don't necessarily have as much time for me anymore. So being intentional in terms of how you restructure your time and what parenting schedules you build, and then hopefully being present, and reassuring your kid that yes, you still love them.
Okay, when I read number 10, my thoughts, the first thing that came to my mind was when I was going through my divorce and I was crying all the time. And I was trying to hide it, but sometimes my kids knew I was crying and they'd be like, "Mommy, why are you so sad? What's
Mm,
wrong?" And that is worrisome to them. So that's a perfect time to say, I'm sad about the divorce, but this has nothing to do. I'm actually crying because I'm so filled with gratitude that I have you and I love you so much and we're still going to be together. It's just a lot of change and that's why I'm sad. But dad and I both know this is for the best. It's something that we have to do, but we both love you more than ever and we both want to be with you.
Thank you for sharing that. That is so powerful and insightful. And I hope it helps families, especially families with little kids, but it can be definitely shared with older children as well.
Well, Anna, thank you so much for taking time to have this conversation. I cannot even stress the importance enough of listening to your kids and hearing what they're saying and responding to what they might be thinking. And your book, I'm so excited about it. I think it's going to help so many kids and families.
Thank you so much. I so appreciate you taking the time to talk to me about it. And I hope the book is able to help so many families out there to have these conversations with their kids.
Well, we sort of touched on this before the podcast. If I was looking for a divorce attorney and I saw that you wrote this book and that you're a mother of a 4-year-old and how much you truly care about kids, you would be the attorney for me. And so that I think really speaks a lot to what you prioritize in your practice. And I think that's really, really wonderful.
Thank you, Jackie.
Okay, everyone. If you want to learn more about Anna, a couple things. You can get her book on Amazon. Just look up My Parents Are Getting Divorced by Anna Krolikowska. You can also go to Anna's website, which is annaklaw.com. And you can also find Anna in the trusted professional section at divorcedgirlsmiling.com. You can also go to divorcedgirlsmiling.com to listen to more podcasts, read articles, find other wonderful, vetted, trusted divorce professionals like therapists and divorce coaches and financial advisors and more. And the website address again is divorcegirlsmiling.com, although I feel like I just said that 10 times. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. We'll talk to you real soon.